cabinetry and things. So you can really sort of go through the house and you can look at those architectural features, and you can sort of, if you're aware of them, you can sort of get a good feel as to when, and I, looking at it myself, I see the largest expansion. Clearly, the tile and all of that would have been probably about 1921, that kitchen addition, because she died in 1923. So that newer kitchen, that big sort of tiled kitchen and pantry, looks very much like it was added in the early 1920s. But you can also see sort of the architecture of the, sort of the original house, and then when you get into about the 1890s and then sort of the 1910, you can see the difference in even the fireplaces, the coal burning fireplaces that were installed instead of wood burning fireplaces. So you can really get a feel for the architecture of it, and it's a really cool place. And as I was going through, like I said, I mean, I was a long time ago when I was there, and I really don't remember a lot of it. I remember certain little aspects. But as I'm going through the Matterport 3D, I'm starting to remember, certain things that caught my eye when I was a kid. But looking at it now, it's like, wow, it really reminds me of Casa Loma.
Yeah,
Yeah, architecturally inside. And if for listeners who don't know, Casa Loma was a very large home that was built in the early, sort of the beginning. I guess it started about 1911 and went on into the 1920s. And then they stopped building it because the gentleman's wife died. Palat's wife had died. And so he kind of gave up on the house and he ran out of money. But the stone was originally brought from Scotland to build the exterior of the house. Yeah, which is, crazy. But it also has about 130 rooms in Casa Loma, or 132 rooms. I used to work there for a number of years doing summer programs and different things. And it was always such an amazing place behind the scenes, because what you see in the public's really cool, but what you get to see when you work there
of course.
All these hidden little rooms and secret passages and staircases that, just suddenly appear at the side of a fireplace when you push a button and a little panel pops open. And, so there's all of these cool, interesting things, too, that Casa Loma has. And so the Winchester House reminds me of that.
Yeah. The last I was at Casa Loma was, probably about 5 years ago, and they had actually opened up some of those secret passages to the public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can see them now.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, as you say, you go through this little doorway on the side of the fireplace and go
that's
up
the
staircase,
study.
And
Henry Palat's study where it ends up, and that's really a cool spot. But there's so many other little niches and cool places in there too. And it's equally as creepy and haunted as the Winchester House. But, it's sort of Toronto's version. But I think the real uniqueness of the Winchester Mansion is just simply that continuous building, because it has no rhyme or reason. Casa Loma was built as this beautiful, big castle-style, Scottish castle. And has very much that feel to it when you look at it. In the Winchester House, it makes sense at the front of the house, but as soon as you go down the side of the property, it's like,
it's just bizarre.
Yeah,
it's just bizarre.
Just strange things that make you feel like you're going to walk outside between a building, and you are, yet it's enclosed. But if you look out a window, you can see an outside exposed wall. It's the outside of the house, but somehow yet you're still inside the house.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if you ever really want to see just how crazy it actually looks, is go on to Google Maps, onto the satellite images, and find it on Google Maps and look down on the estate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the craziest layout you could ever imagine.
It covers 6 acres, apparently. The house is 24,000 square feet over 6 acres of land. So
and I believe that's what it is today. It was actually larger. from what I understand back then. Yeah.
Right. It's really pretty cool. I mean, I'm fascinated with it. Like I said, I would love to get back and visit it. It's been, so long that I don't really remember, and I don't think as much of it was open back when we were there a long time ago. It would just be really cool to look at that today and see. I know my cousin was there a few years ago, and she told me, she's like, oh, you would just love it now. It's so amazing, right? So with that, like with the architecture and everything, let's kind of talk about the hauntings as well, because there's, as I was going through the information for that, there seems to be some variations on how people feel, and of course that is, again, the perception of anybody in the paranormal field, or anyone who may be a medium or an empath or has, a certain ability, that we pick up things and we feel them differently. And we were talking about that last week on the Poltergeist show too, right? Is that how we perceive things? So in terms of the hauntings themselves, there's an interesting article that talks about, and it's actually in Vanity Fair, and I don't know if you came across it, but it's actually Helen Mirren talking about her role as Sarah Winchester. And they shot in the house. They did,
right? Yes.
Yeah. So she kind of goes on to say that, that she felt a certain sense of things within the house, and it's kind of interesting because she said that she understood that Sarah Winchester was far from just a crazy lady, right, who built a crazy house. She also felt that a lot of it had to do with her grief and how she was handling things. But the one thing that she said for her that was somewhat unsettling was the staircases that led to nowhere. Those were
the switchback staircases. Yeah,
the switchback staircases that kind of just went nowhere. And also the grand ballroom, which was built. It cost $9,000 in 1880 to build the grand ballroom. And at that time, that was 3.5 times the cost of building an entire home. So, just that ballroom alone.
Oh, my gosh.
But that ballroom has a number 13 motif throughout it. So, if you're sort of, even slightly, you have, what is it, I can't think of it. It's I can't say the word. Now I have to look it up. It's the fear of the number 13. Okay.
The fear of the number 13. Yeah.
Right. This room would not be a room for you, although you kind of have to really look at it to find it. But it apparently has a repeating motif of the number 13 that are baked into elaborate decorations. So there's panels on the ceiling that are like, fancy panels that have been carved, but there's 9 panels, and in 8 of those panels you'll find 13 separate little individual, sort of cubes or decorative motifs that make up that one panel. So there's all these things in there, and then there's 2 windows in the space that have lines from Shakespeare on them, and nobody really knows why. Yeah, there's the one window has a line from, I'm trying to think what it was now. I think it's the first one was Richard III, I think, or Richard II, one of them. It was Richard II. And then the other window has a quote or a sort of an excerpt from Troilus and Cressida. And so nobody really knows why those sayings are there, but they're there, and they're actually etched into the windows. But from what I could see is those windows are, again, windows that go nowhere. At least from what I was looking at on the Matterport, it doesn't look like, and I don't remember those going through there. So I wonder, because there's like drapery and then it sort of looks like there's nothing but a wooden wall behind the window. So I think what happened too with some of these strange windows and things is that, because the rooms were interior rooms with no actual exterior fronting, that you create windows and you put drapery on them to make you feel like there's a window when there really isn't a window. That's
right.
Kind of a designer decorator trick, right? You have a small apartment, you only got one window, you need another window, put a mirror, make it look like a window, etc.
Fake it. Yeah.
Yeah, you fake it. So I think some of these things, with all the doors, I'm not 100% sure what's going on with all the doors, but this room, anyways, as Helen Mirren was saying, she said sitting inside it was quite uncanny. Like you really felt something odd about that space. And the other interesting thing about that space is when Sarah passed away, the public obviously wanted inside this place. And so I'm not sure exactly what the, preamble was to get into the Winchester mansion when Sarah passed away. But there were people who did get in, and I guess they were investigating. And inside this ballroom, there's a door that when they opened the door, behind that door was a concrete wall. What possessed them to cut through the concrete wall, I don't know, because you're inside a house and, I would probably think you might want to check with somebody about structure before you start chipping away at a concrete wall. But apparently they did, and they found a safe. And they got the safe open, but inside that safe was another safe.
Which they probably couldn't open.
Well, here's the thing. Of course, everybody's probably thinking it's like money or, whatever, gold, jewelry, etc. When they finally did get through that safe, it turned out that inside that safe was a lock of her daughter's hair and the obituaries from her daughter and her husband.
Oh,
and that was
in
all
the movie.
In that safe. Isn't that weird, that it was
that was
safe?
Featured in the movie as well, that story,
right,
yes.
Yeah. There was a safe inside of a safe behind a concrete wall. So it sort of makes you realize that, and this is why I kind of tend to want to go with Houdini's take on this, is that how distraught and how precious those things from her husband, even though it was just an obituary, and the lock of hair from her daughter were to her, that she put a safe within a safe behind a concrete wall and a door.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, I can relate. My daughter is alive and well, and I have her hair from her very first haircut.
Right.
When she was younger. Yeah, so I can relate to that.
Yeah, and exactly, and I mean, she lost her daughter at a as a baby, really, right? And so I don't think she ever really got over that. And then, when her husband passed away. But the interesting thing is, sort of Helen Mirren, because she was playing her in this house, it must have been an interesting sort of, full on, you're immersed in the everything, all the emotions and all of the energy that the house itself holds. Yeah.
You look at all the historical films that have been made by Hollywood, and of course the leading actors have to get into the role and try to understand who the person is that they are portraying.
Right.
But in her case, to actually be filming in the actual house, the actual location, it must have just been surreal.
I would have loved it myself. I mean, but then I might have been horribly distracted by things, spirits talking in my ear endlessly. But she kind of goes on to talk about how she felt playing the role, but also that she felt, I guess after doing a lot of research, as much research as she could, on Sarah, and being in the house, that she said she felt that Sarah was someone with great empathy, and that, she did lose her baby and her husband, and that she sort of decided that in her all-consuming grief that she wanted to be kind of reclusive and centered entirely on the project of, continuing to build this house, right? And
that she certainly was.
Yeah, so for 38 years of her life, that's what she did, and the fact that it never stopped, and that interesting thing was just, that's what she felt about sort of being